Good morning, YouTube. So, just driving around post-Hurricane Irma, Miami-Dade County. Just give you guys an idea of what's going on around here. And looks like I've got to turn around because there's a tree in the way. Won't be able to escape from there. So, if you're not from South Florida, whatever you've seen Miami in a movie or a TV show, what you've actually seen is most likely South Beach. That's part of Miami Beach. It's a little piece of land that sticks out of South Florida. It's not even actually mainland Florida, right? It's like a little island. So, if you move to Miami-Dade County, for the most part, you're going to be living in something like this. Single family homes, lots of lawns and trees, basically sprawling suburbia as far as the eye can see. And what usually happens is you move into your neighborhood, a big hurricane hasn't come in a while, and people get behind with the trimming of their trees. So basically, sometime at the end of summer, right? Like hurricane season starts, I believe, in June, but hurricanes aren't really a problem till like August, September. So somewhere at the end of July, you should probably start trimming the branches off your trees, especially the big ones. Main reason being that when a hurricane does come, the more branches your tree has, the more leverage the wind has on it, and the more likely it is to get knocked down and become a problem. So, because a major hurricane hasn't really, at least a hurricane that affects us, hasn't really happened around here since like Hurricane Wilma back in 2005, that generally means that most people have gotten lax with that. And while, for example, last year's hurricane, water and gasoline did sell out, for the most part, no one around really shuttered up their house. Like, my house was one of the few in my neighborhood and in other neighborhoods like this one. So this time around, because of what happened in Texas, and because of how massive Hurricane Irma was, then people actually paid attention. People were actually, preparing. So besides the lines for gasoline and the water and non-perishables selling out, people shuttered up their homes, boarded up their windows if they don't have shutters. And, well, one thing they forgot about was the trimming of the trees. So you can see we basically have a wrecking zone. Now, it's Wednesday morning. These trees have been down for several days now. But of course, if the owners aren't around to trim them, they're probably still in the streets. Or if the trees belong to a park or something of that nature, they might still be in the way. It might still be a bit of a problem. So coming up ahead here, looks like we've got some trees knocked down. We've got some people that don't understand the notion of like sidewalks. Granted, I don't blame them because, sidewalk isn't exactly usable right now. But they should have probably found another way of going about that and not been on the street. Unless you got a plate on your butt, you probably shouldn't be walking down the street. Just a thought. So anywho, we're cruising around. This is kind of what you get when you move to South Florida. This is part of your life. I mean, again, unless you live in a brand new neighborhood that has no trees, or I don't know, you move to Miami Beach, which is not likely for most people unless you're loaded as hell, you're probably going to see a lot of this. And even if you live in those places, when you drive out, go anywhere else, you're kind of going to deal with this. A lot of trees everywhere. A lot of slow moving traffic because lanes and such are blocked off. Basically a wasteland of felled trees everywhere. I mean, a lot of us were without power for a while. Some people are still without power, so that's another kind of thing that you have to deal with. But over the years, FP&L has gotten much better at managing that. That's Florida Power and Light, for those of you not in the know. When Hurricane Wilma hit, I didn't go to school. Like, I had just started at university. I didn't go to school for like 2 weeks I want to say, and I was without power for about that long as well. Whereas this time around, I want to say I lost power and had 2 days straight without power. So like the main day where the hurricane was assaulting us, which was like what, like Monday? Yeah, Sunday and Monday. Yeah, Sunday, Monday, no power. And then like Tuesday night we got power, if I'm not mistaken. So we didn't have to wait 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't as long as it used to be. So apparently they've gotten better about it. It's kind of annoying sometimes because technically the reason they cut the power out is because overhead power lines get knocked down and then they fall into puddles of water and people go wading in them and get shocked to death, electrocuted, right? So they cut them off. But if your neighborhood doesn't have any overhead power lines, let's say this one I'm driving around, there's no overhead power lines anywhere. So it begs the question of why would they cut the power here at all? Last I heard on the radio from FPNL, apparently if you have underground power lines, they do still cut your power if you have a lot of flooding, because apparently I guess it soaks into the ground and can affect the cable somehow, maybe cause some shorts. But as you can see by driving around here, these folks have underground power lines and they don't have any flooding, and neither did my neighborhood, and we still got our power cut out. To some degree that might be because we're on a circuit with other people that have overhead power lines, I don't know, but definitely flooding is not an issue here. And I'm glad that at least in my neighborhood they got to restoring the power, you know, within 2-3 days, as opposed to making us wait a horrible 2 weeks without power, which is just third world. Let's be honest, it's unacceptable. If there's no overhead power lines, no flooding, like, we should have never lost power to begin with. But I digress. So yeah, that just gives you guys an idea of what Miami-Dade County looks like after a hurricane. Those of you that have never lived through it or been through it, the thing itself is usually not that big a deal. You kind of just hang out inside your house, you listen to gusts of wind, and sometimes you hear it ripping the tiles right off the roof of your house. I mean, comes with the territory, I guess. So long as your windows are all shuttered up and projectiles can't bust them open, you're usually pretty good. You know, you might just have to go through some unpleasant time periods where you have no power and where the streets are annoying to drive through because, yeah, like whole forest in the middle of the street. But other than that, usually it's not that big a deal, especially if you have a more like modern home. And by modern I mean like survived or post Hurricane Andrew. You know, you're usually going to be fine. Irma was a lot larger than Hurricane Andrew. I still feel like Hurricane Andrew did a lot more damage than this did. Hurricane Andrew ripped roofs right off of houses, and maybe that happened somewhere, but at least not that I've seen with Irma. Everyone's roof seems to still be on. Might have lost a couple tiles and shingles here and there, but for the most part, all the structures look okay. Not sure, you know, comment how your neighborhood is doing if you've experienced something different. Hope most of you out there are doing fine, don't have any major problems. Hope everybody's safe and sound, and that'll be it. Signing off.